I woke up in Chiang Mai Ram Hospital on a Tuesday afternoon with an IV in my arm and a nurse standing over me asking if I knew what day it was. February 14th, I said. Valentine's Day. She nodded and said I'd been there for 2 weeks. Mild heart attack. They'd kept me sedated for most of it to let my body recover. I asked where my wife was. The nurse looked uncomfortable. She said my wife had been very worried, had visited every day, but hadn't been back since yesterday. I asked for my phone. The nurse said my wife had taken it home for safekeeping. Something in her voice made my chest tighten again. When they finally discharged me 3 days later, I took a songthu back to my condo in Nimmenhamen. The building looked the same. The security guard waved at me like always. But when I opened the door to my third-floor unit, I knew immediately something was catastrophically wrong. The living room was empty. Completely empty. No couch, no television, no coffee table. I walked to the bedroom. The bed was gone. The dresser. Even the curtains had been taken down. In the kitchen, every appliance was missing. The refrigerator, the microwave, the rice cooker Kanya had insisted we needed. All gone. I stood in that empty condo for I don't know how long, my heart pounding in a way the doctors had specifically told me to avoid, trying to understand what I was seeing. My wife had emptied our home while I was unconscious in a hospital bed, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of understanding how completely I'd been destroyed. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. I spent 34 years with the Denver Fire Department. Started as a probationary firefighter at 24, worked my way up to captain, retired at 58 with full pension and benefits. It was good work, honest work, the kind of career where you knew you'd made a difference, even if most days that difference was just being there when people needed help. I married my high school sweetheart, Jennifer, when I was 26. We had a good life together. No kids we'd tried, but it never happened, but we had each other, and that was enough. Jen worked as a school librarian. We had a small house in Lakewood, spent weekends hiking in the mountains. Simple life, happy life. Then Jen got sick. Ovarian cancer. Diagnosed in 2016. She fought for 3 years. Surgery, chemo, brief remission. Then it came back worse. She died in October 2019, 2 days before our 33rd anniversary. I was holding her hand when she went. Last thing she said to me was, "Don't spend the rest of your life alone, David. Promise me you'll find someone to be happy with." I promised, but I didn't mean it. I couldn't imagine being with anyone else. The grief was overwhelming. The house felt empty. Work felt pointless. I'd already been planning to retire. But after Jen died, I couldn't wait. I needed to get away from everything that reminded me of her. Our house, our routines, the life we'd built that no longer existed. I retired in January 2020, sold the house. We didn't have kids to leave anything to. No complicated estate. When everything was settled, I had $320,000 and a pension of $2,800 a month. More than enough to live comfortably, especially if I wasn't living in Colorado. My old lieutenant, a guy named Marcus Chen, had retired to Thailand a few years earlier. He'd send photos, sometimes temples, beaches, smiling Thai people. He'd tell me I should visit, that Thailand was good for healing, that the pace of life there would help me process the grief. I wasn't sure about that, but I also wasn't sure about anything anymore. So in March 2020, right before the world shut down for the pandemic, I booked a 3-week trip to Thailand, just to see, just to get away. The flight from Denver to Bangkok through Tokyo took 19 hours. I arrived exhausted, disoriented, still not entirely sure why I'd come. Marcus picked me up at the airport, drove me to his place in Chiang Mai. He'd been living there for 4 years. Had a nice condo near the old city. Cheap rent, good food, friendly people. Chiang Mai was beautiful. Surrounded by mountains, dozens of temples, night markets full of food and crafts. The weather was perfect, warm, but not oppressive. Everyone smiled and said hello. It felt peaceful in a way Denver hadn't felt in years. Marcus introduced me to the expat community. Monthly meetups at various bars and restaurants. Mix of retirees, digital nomads, English teachers. Some had Thai partners. Some didn't. Everyone seemed content. Not deliriously happy, just content. Like they'd found a place where life was manageable. I spent 3 weeks exploring, visited temples, took a cooking class, went on a trek through the mountains. Started to feel like maybe I could breathe again. Like maybe Jen had been right, I needed to find a way to be happy, even without her. On my last week there, I got sick. Nothing serious, I thought. Just dehydration from walking around in the heat without drinking enough water. But it hit me hard. Dizziness, nausea, weakness. Marcus insisted I go to a clinic. I said I'd be fine. He said, "Don't be stupid. Healthcare here is good and cheap. Just go." I went to a private clinic near the Niman area. Small place, clean, modern. The doctor saw me immediately. No waiting, no bureaucracy. He said yes, dehydration, but also my blood pressure was high, dangerously high. He wanted to admit me overnight for observation and IV fluids. That's where I met Kanya. She was the nurse assistant on duty, 30-ish, petite, wearing scrubs and speaking English with that soft Thai accent that made everything sound gentle. She helped me into a bed, started my IV, checked my vitals. She was kind, attentive, asked me questions about where I was from, what brought me to Thailand. I told her about Jen, about the grief, about trying to figure out how to keep living. I don't know why I told her. Maybe because she asked in a way that felt genuine. Maybe because I was vulnerable and lonely, and she was the first woman who'd shown me any kindness since Jen died. Kanya listened, really listened. When I finished talking, she touched my hand gently and said, "You are the strongest man I ever met. To love someone so much, to keep going after losing them, that is real strength." I felt tears sting my eyes. Nobody had said anything like that to me. Everyone back home had been uncomfortable with my grief, wanted me to move on, be normal. But Kanya seemed to understand. I stayed in the clinic for 2 nights. Kanya checked on me frequently. We talked between her other duties. She told me she'd grown up in a small village in Chiang Rai province. Her father had been a farmer. She'd come to Chiang Mai to study nursing, but hadn't been able to afford the full degree program. Now she worked as a nursing assistant, hoping to save enough to finish her education someday. She asked if I was married. I said I was widowed. She said she'd never been married. Thai men wanted traditional wives who stayed home. She wanted more than that, wanted to work, have a career, be independent. When I was discharged, Kanya gave me her line contact. She said if I needed anything while I was still in Chiang Mai, I should message her. Medical questions, recommendations for pharmacies, anything. I thanked her and left. I flew back to Denver 3 days later, feeling better physically but emotionally confused. I couldn't stop thinking about Kanya. Not romantically, at least. I told myself it wasn't romantic. Just, she'd been kind when I needed kindness. And kindness, when you're grieving, feels like everything. I messaged Kanya a week after returning to Denver. Just a simple thank you message, saying I appreciated her care at the clinic, hoping she was well. She responded immediately, said she'd been thinking about me, hoping I was feeling better, asking how Colorado was. We started talking regularly. Every few days at first, then every day. Text messages, voice messages, occasional video calls. Kanya would tell me about her day at the clinic. I'd tell her about my day, which mostly consisted of sorting through Jen's belongings and trying to figure out what to do with my life. Kanya was easy to talk to. She never judged, never pushed, just listened and asked thoughtful questions. She'd send me photos of Chiang Mai sunset over Doi Suthep, flowers at the temple, street food she was eating. Normal things, not posed or performative, just life. In June, Kanya mentioned her father was sick, diabetes complications. The village clinic couldn't treat him properly. She was trying to arrange for him to see a specialist in Chiang Mai, but the costs were high. She wasn't asking me for money, just sharing her worry. I asked how much the specialist would cost. She said maybe 15,000 baht, about $450, plus medication, maybe 20,000 baht total, about $600. I offered to help. She immediately said no. She couldn't accept money from me. We were friends, but that was too much, I insisted. $600 wouldn't hurt me. If it would help her father, I wanted to do it. She accepted reluctantly, with multiple thank yous. A week later, she sent me photos of her father at the specialist clinic in Chiang Mai. receipts for the consultation and medications. Everything documented. I felt good about helping. In August, we started video calling more frequently. Kanya would call after her shift at the clinic, late evening, her time, morning, my time. We'd talk for hours. She'd ask about my firefighting career. I'd tell stories about rescues, about losing colleagues, about the brotherhood of the department. She seemed genuinely interested. Said she'd always admired firefighters. Heroes, she called us. I told her I wasn't a hero, just a guy who'd done his job. She said that's exactly what made it heroic, doing dangerous work because it needed to be done, not for glory. By September, I was thinking about Kanya constantly. I looked forward to our calls more than anything else in my day. I started planning another trip to Thailand, maybe longer this time. Maybe see if this connection we had could develop into something more. I told Marcus about her. He was immediately concerned, asked if she'd asked for money. I said only once, for her father's medical care, and she'd been reluctant to accept. Marcus said to be careful. Not all Thai women were scammers, but the medical emergency story was a classic setup. I should watch for patterns. I told him Kanya wasn't like that. She was a nurse. She had a real job. We'd been talking for 6 months, and she'd never asked for anything except that one time. Marcus said, okay, but stay alert. In October, I booked a flight to Chiang Mai. 2 months. I'd rent a condo, see how I liked living there long term. And I'd see Kanya in person, figure out if what we had over video was real. I arrived in Chiang Mai on a humid November afternoon. Kanya picked me up from the airport. She looked exactly like her photos. Pretty, but not flashy. Simple clothes. Genuine smile. She hugged me at arrivals, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Jen died connection. Hope. The possibility of not being alone anymore. Kanya helped me find a furnished condo in Nimmonheimen. Modern building, 1 bedroom, 9,000 baht per month, about $270. Close to cafes and restaurants. Close to her clinic. Perfect location. We spent almost every evening together over the next 2 weeks. She'd finish her shift at 6, come to my place. We'd cook dinner together or go out for street food. We'd talk, watch movies, just be together. It felt natural, easy, like we'd known each other for years instead of months. Kanya never asked to stay over, always went home to her apartment near the university. I appreciated that. It showed respect, boundaries. She wasn't rushing anything. 3 weeks into my visit, Kanya mentioned she'd been offered a better position at a different clinic. More responsibilities, better pay, but she was nervous about taking it. She'd never worked anywhere except her current clinic. What if she wasn't good enough? I told her she was absolutely good enough. She was smart, capable, caring. She should take the opportunity. She did. Started the new position in December. She was happier, more confident. Would tell me about her days managing patient care, training newer assistants. She was thriving. By Christmas, we were officially together. Not just friends, a couple. We celebrated at a nice restaurant overlooking the city. She gave me a card. She'd made herself watercolor painting of Doi Suthep Temple. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for making me feel strong." I told her I loved her. She said she loved me too. On New Year's Eve, I asked her to move in with me. She hesitated, said Thai culture was traditional. Living together before marriage wasn't normal. People would judge. I said I didn't care what people thought. But if marriage would make her more comfortable, we could do that. She looked shocked. "You would marry me?" "Yes, if you'll have me." She cried and said yes. We got married at the district office in January 2021. Small ceremony. Just us and 2 witnesses, Marcus and one of Kanya's co-workers. Paperwork signed, stamps applied, official marriage certificate issued. Kanya became Mrs. Kanya Collins. That evening, she moved into my condo, brought 2 suitcases of clothes and personal items, said she'd sell her apartment furniture, she wouldn't need it anymore. We were building a life together now. Everything felt right. I'd found what Jen had wanted for me, someone to be happy with, someone to build a new life with. I added Kanya as a joint holder on my Thai bank account. Just made sense. We were married, sharing expenses, building a future. She should have access in case anything ever happened to me. That decision would destroy me. The first 6 months of marriage were good, really good. Kanya was everything I'd hoped for. Attentive, caring, present. She'd wake up early to make breakfast before her shift, come home and cook dinner. Make sure I'd taken my blood pressure medication. The doctor in Denver had prescribed it after Jen died. Stress-related hypertension. She worried about my health constantly. Said I needed to eat better, exercise more, reduce stress. She'd prepare healthy Thai meals, lots of vegetables, lean protein, less oil than restaurant food. She'd go on walks with me in the evenings. Make sure I stayed hydrated in the heat. It felt good to be cared for. I'd spent 3 years taking care of Jen while she was sick, then 2 years alone taking care of no one. Having someone worry about me, look after me, it filled something I didn't know was empty. In March, Kanya mentioned her mother needed surgery, gallbladder removal. The government hospital had a 6-month wait list. Private hospital could do it immediately but cost 80,000 baht, about $2,400. I didn't hesitate. I transferred the money. Kanya showed me receipts from the hospital. Photos of her mother in a hospital bed, Kanya beside her holding her hand. Everything seemed legitimate. In April, I started having chest pains. Nothing severe. Just occasional tightness. Probably stress, I thought. Or maybe I'd eaten something that didn't agree with me. Kanya insisted I see a doctor. Made an appointment at Bangkok Hospital, Chiang Mai. The cardiologist ran tests. EKG, stress test, blood work. The doctor said my heart was okay, but showing signs of strain. My blood pressure was still too high despite medication. I needed to manage stress better, maybe adjust medication. Come back in 3 months for follow-up. Kanya became even more vigilant after that. She'd check my blood pressure twice a day with a home monitor she bought. Make sure I took my pills at exact times. Limit my coffee intake. Insist I rest more. Sometimes it felt like too much. I tell her I was fine. I'd been managing this for years. She'd say I'd been managing alone. Now she was here to help. That's what wives did. I should let her take care of me. I did. Because it felt like love. In June, Kanya's clinic reduced her hours. Budget cuts, she said. She'd only be working 3 days a week instead of 5. The pay cut was significant. She was worried about contributing to household expenses. I told her not to worry. My pension covered everything. She should focus on her health and happiness. Maybe use the extra time to study for her nursing degree. She seemed relieved, grateful, said I was the best husband she could have asked for. In July, Marcus invited us to dinner at his place. I'd been seeing less of him since getting married. Kanya liked to keep our evenings together, just the two of us. But I missed Marcus. He was my oldest friend in Chiang Mai. At dinner, Marcus asked Kanya about her work. Which clinic was she at? She mentioned the name. Marcus nodded. Asked how long she'd been there. She said 2 years. Marcus's face did something strange. Later, when Kanya was in the bathroom, he pulled me aside. David, I have a friend who works at that clinic. He says they haven't had anyone named Kanya working there. Not in the past 2 years, anyway. I felt my chest tighten. Told Marcus he must be mistaken. Different clinic, maybe. Kanya had definitely worked there. That's where I'd met her. Marcus said he'd double-check, but he wanted me to be careful, just in case. I was angry with Marcus. He was jealous, I thought. Couldn't stand seeing me happy. Classic bitter expat syndrome. I told Kanya what he'd said on the drive home. She looked hurt. Said she didn't understand why Marcus would lie about her. Maybe he'd asked about the wrong clinic. Or maybe his friend was confused. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. In August, I started feeling worse. More chest pain, fatigue, shortness of breath sometimes. Kanya insisted I see the cardiologist again. The doctor ran more tests. Said my condition had deteriorated. Medication wasn't controlling my blood pressure effectively. I needed to consider lifestyle changes, maybe stress reduction therapy. The doctor asked if I was under unusual stress. I said no. Life was good. I was happy, married, settled in Thailand. The doctor seemed skeptical but didn't push, adjusted my medications, told me to come back in 6 weeks. Kanya became even more protective. She started managing all my medications personally, would prepare my pills each morning and evening in a small container, make sure I took them with food. I appreciated the help. Managing multiple medications was confusing. In September, I woke up one morning feeling strange, dizzy, nauseous, heart racing. Kanya immediately called for an ambulance. I was admitted to Chiang Mai Ram Hospital. Mild heart attack, they said. Not severe, but serious. They'd need to keep me for observation. Run more tests. possibly insert a stent. I was terrified. I'd seen firefighters have heart attacks. Young guys in their 40s dropping dead on scene. I didn't want to die. Not now. Not when I'd finally found happiness again. Kanya stayed with me in the hospital, slept in a chair beside my bed, held my hand, told me I'd be okay. She'd make sure of it. She was a nurse. She knew how to take care of me. The doctors decided against the stent, said my blockage wasn't severe enough yet, but I'd need to be extremely careful. No stress, perfect medication compliance, healthy diet, regular monitoring. They kept me for 2 weeks. Kanya visited every day, brought me food from home because she said hospital food wasn't healthy enough, made sure the nurses were taking proper care of me. She was my advocate, my protector. About a week into my stay, I asked for my phone. I wanted to message Marcus, let him know what happened. Kanya said she'd taken my phone home for safekeeping. Hospital rooms weren't secure. Someone might steal it. She'd bring it tomorrow. She didn't bring it tomorrow, or the next day. When I asked again, she said the phone had died and she'd forgotten the charger. She'd bring it soon. Don't worry about phones. Focus on healing. I let it go. She was right. I should focus on healing. On my 10th day in the hospital, Kanya said she needed to go home for a few hours, handle some things at the condo, pay bills. She'd be back that evening. I said, okay, told her I loved her. She kissed my forehead and said, I love you too. Rest now. That was the last time I saw her. When Kanya didn't return that evening, I thought maybe she'd gotten tired and decided to sleep at home. She'd been staying at the hospital for 10 days straight. She needed proper rest. When she didn't come the next day, I started to worry. I asked the nurses if they'd heard from her. They said no. They seemed uncomfortable with the question. On the 3rd day without seeing her, I insisted the hospital let me use a phone. They brought me a landline. I tried calling Kanya's number. It rang, but she didn't answer. I tried 10 times. No answer. That evening, February 14th, I had another episode. Panic attack, the doctors called it. But it felt like another heart attack. Chest pain, difficulty breathing, overwhelming fear. They sedated me heavily, kept me sedated for 3 more days. When I woke up, it was February 17th. The nurses were relieved to see me conscious. I immediately asked about Kanya. Where was my wife? The head nurse looked uncomfortable, said my wife hadn't visited since February 10th, 7 days ago. They'd tried calling the number on my admission form. No answer. I insisted on being discharged. Something was wrong. I needed to get home, find Kanya, make sure she was okay. The doctor was reluctant, said my heart wasn't stable yet. I needed more rest. But I was adamant. I signed discharge papers against medical advice, called a Songthew to take me home. The ride from the hospital to my condo took 15 minutes. Longest 15 minutes of my life. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe Kanya was sick. Maybe her phone broke. Maybe there was a family emergency. But when I opened the door to my condo, I knew. I knew immediately that my life had been destroyed. Everything was gone. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every decoration. The place was completely empty, except for dust marks on the floor where furniture had been. I walked through each room in shock. The bedroom empty. The kitchen empty. Even the bathroom had been stripped. No towels. No toiletries. Nothing. I went downstairs to the security office. Asked the guard what happened. Where did my furniture go? The guard looked confused. Said a moving truck had come about 5 days ago. My wife supervised everything. She said we were moving to Bangkok. She'd already informed the landlord. Very organized lady, the guard said. Made sure the movers were careful with everything. I felt like I was going to vomit. I went back upstairs, sat on the floor of the empty living room, and tried to think, where would Kanya have taken everything? Why would she tell people we were moving to Bangkok? Then the real panic hit. My bank accounts. I needed to check my bank accounts, but I didn't have my phone. I didn't have my laptop. Kanya had taken both, claiming they needed to be kept safe while I was in the hospital. I borrowed a phone from a neighbor, tried to log into my online banking. Couldn't remember the password. Couldn't reset it without my phone number. I'd have to go to the bank in person. I walked to the Casacorn Bank branch near Niman, went to the teller, showed my passport, said I needed to check my account balance. The teller pulled up my account. Her face did something strange. She excused herself, spoke to a supervisor. The supervisor came over, asked me to step into a private room. That's when I learned the truth. My account had been emptied, every bot, multiple withdrawals over the past week, all done online. The account had been closed 2 days ago. How much had been in there? The supervisor asked. 8,900,000 baht, I said. About $280,000. My entire retirement savings. The supervisor looked sympathetic, asked if I'd authorized these withdrawals. I said no. My wife had access to the account, but I hadn't authorized anything. I'd been in the hospital unconscious. The supervisor said the withdrawals were done using proper login credentials. Online banking. Nothing appeared fraudulent from the bank's perspective. They couldn't reverse the transactions without a police report and proof of unauthorized access. I asked where the money went. The supervisor said it had been transferred to several different accounts, then withdrawn in cash from various branches. Bangkok, Udon Thani, Nong Khai. Impossible to trace now. I felt the room spinning. I asked the supervisor to repeat what she'd said. The money was gone? All of it? Yes, she said quietly. I'm very sorry. I somehow made it back to my empty condo. Sat on the floor. Stared at the wall. Tried to process what had just happened. My wife had emptied our home while I was unconscious in a hospital. She'd stolen every penny of my retirement savings. She'd disappeared. And according to my neighbors and the security guard, she'd done it all with a smile, acting like it was perfectly normal. I'd been completely, systematically destroyed by the woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, the woman who'd promised to take care of me. That night, I slept on the floor of the empty condo. I had nowhere else to go. No money for a hotel. No furniture. No phone to call for help. Just me and the echo of my own breathing in an empty room. The next morning, I went to the tourist police. The tourist police office was in a government building near the old city. I walked there, couldn't afford a taxi anymore. My pension wouldn't arrive for another 2 weeks, and I had maybe 300 baht in my wallet, about $9. The officer who took my report was polite, but not particularly sympathetic. He'd heard this story before, his expression said. Foreign man, Thai wife, missing money, tale as old as time. I gave him all the details, showed him my marriage certificate. My bank statements from before everything disappeared. The discharge papers from the hospital showing the dates I was incapacitated. He took notes. Asked questions. How long had I known her? Where did we meet? Did I have proof the money was mine and not joint marital assets? I explained it was my retirement savings from the United States. Transferred into Thailand. We'd been married less than a year. I could prove the money came from my U.S. accounts. The officer nodded. Said he'd file a report. Asked if I had Kanya's ID card number. I didn't. I'd never thought to memorize it. The officer said that would make things difficult. Did I have photos of her? I didn't. They'd all been on my phone, which she'd taken. The officer said he'd do what he could. But I should understand that these cases were complicated. If Kanya was listed as a joint account holder, she technically had legal access to the funds. Proving theft would require proving she'd acted with criminal intent. That was hard to establish in a marriage. I asked what I should do. The officer suggested I contact the U.S. Embassy. They might be able to help with emergency funds and getting me home. Home? I didn't have a home. I'd sold my house in Denver. Everything I owned had been in that condo, and it was all gone. As I was leaving, the officer said something that made my blood run cold. Mr. Collins, you should know you're the 5th foreign husband to report someone named Kanya this year. Each time, the details are slightly different. Different ID, different hometown, different backstory. But the pattern is always the same. They meet at a clinic or hospital. They marry quickly. Then the man gets sick, and the money disappears. I stared at him. You're saying she's done this before? We can't prove it's the same woman. The IDs are always different, probably fake. But yes, we believe it's an organized operation. Maybe one woman, maybe a small group. They target foreign men who are older, recently widowed, emotionally vulnerable. The medical caretaker angle builds trust quickly. Then they wait for an opportunity, illness, hospitalization, something that incapacitates the victim temporarily. That's when they strike. How many men? That we know of. Maybe 20 over the past 5 years. Probably more who never reported it. Too embarrassed. Or they left Thailand immediately. How much money total? The officer checked his computer. Roughly $6 million. That's just reported cases. Actual number is probably much higher. I felt sick. I'd been a mark, a target. Everything with Kanya, the kindness at the clinic, the reluctance to accept help, the careful courtship, the marriage, the caretaking, all of it had been a script. A performance designed to extract maximum value from a vulnerable target. Have you caught anyone? I asked. No. They're very careful. Use fake IDs, move frequently, never stay in one place long enough to be tracked effectively. The money goes through multiple accounts, gets withdrawn as cash, disappears. We've issued warrants, but the names are fake. Without real identification, we can't pursue. What should I do? File the police report, which you've done. Contact your embassy. Gather any documents you have proving the money was yours. Try to get statements from neighbors or the landlord confirming she removed property without your consent. But honestly, Mr. Collins, your best option is probably to go home. Thailand isn't a good place to be broke and alone. I left the police station in a daze, walked back toward Niman, stopped at a 7-Eleven, bought a bottle of water and a rice ball with my remaining baht. Sat on a bench outside and tried to think. I had no money except my pension, which wouldn't arrive for 13 more days. I had no phone, no laptop, no clothes except what I was wearing, and what little I'd had at the hospital, no furniture, no nothing. I'd spent 34 years building a life, saved carefully, retired with security, and in 1 year, I'd lost everything. Not gradually, not through bad decisions, but through trusting the wrong person at the wrong moment in my life. A couple walked past holding hands, laughing, young and carefree. I felt a flash of rage so intense I had to close my eyes and breathe. How dare they be happy when I'd been destroyed? How dare the world keep spinning like everything was normal when my entire life had been stolen? But then the rage faded into something worse. Shame, humiliation. I was a firefighter. I'd spent my career making smart decisions under pressure. How had I fallen for something this obvious? How had I not seen the signs? Marcus had warned me. The doctor in Denver had warned me about stress. Even my own instincts had occasionally raised questions. Why couldn't I verify where Kanya worked? Why had she been so insistent on managing my medications? Why had she taken my phone and never returned it? I'd ignored every warning because I'd wanted to believe, because I'd been lonely and grieving and desperate for connection, and Kanya had known exactly how to exploit that. I sat on that bench until evening, watched the sunset, tried to figure out how to survive the next 2 weeks until my pension arrived. I'd have to find a way. I spent that night in an internet cafe, 20 baht per hour, about 60 cents. The cafe was open 24 hours. I used one of their computers to check my email and social media. Posted in an Expat Facebook group explaining what happened. Asked if anyone knew of cheap or free housing temporarily, just until I could get back on my feet. The responses were immediate and overwhelming. At least 30 messages from other expats offering help. A few had been scammed themselves. Others just wanted to help a fellow foreigner in trouble. A British guy named Stephen said I could stay in his guest room temporarily, no charge. He'd been in Thailand 15 years, had a house outside the city, plenty of space. He'd pick me up tomorrow. I felt tears sting my eyes. Strangers being kinder to me than the woman I'd married. Stephen picked me up the next morning. He was in his 60s, retired engineer, kind face. He didn't ask for details, just said he'd been through rough patches himself. Thailand could be wonderful but also cruel. People needed to look after each other. His house was simple but comfortable. A traditional Thai-style wooden house in a quiet neighborhood. He showed me the guest room. Small but clean. Bed, fan, bathroom, more than I had any right to expect. Over the next few days, other expats helped. Someone donated a phone, old but functional. Someone else gave me clothes. Marcus brought groceries. The expat community in Chiang Mai, despite its reputation for being full of bitter old men, rallied around me. I contacted the U.S. Embassy in Bangkok, explained my situation. They couldn't give me money, that's not what embassies do, but they helped me file reports, provided information on emergency loans and repatriation assistance. They warned that recovery of stolen funds was unlikely. Thailand's legal system wasn't set up to help foreign victims of domestic theft. I asked about pressing charges. The embassy official said I could try, but without knowing Kanya's real identity, there was no one to charge. The ID she'd used to marry me was probably fake. The address she'd given was probably fake. Everything about her was probably fiction. How had she gotten away with it? I asked. How had the district office accepted a fake ID? The official explained that fake IDs in Thailand were common and often difficult to detect, especially if they were high-quality forgeries. The district office staff weren't investigators. They processed paperwork. If the ID looked legitimate and the paperwork was in order, they approved it. So my marriage might not even be legal? I asked. Correct, the official said. If her ID was fake, then the marriage certificate was invalid, which meant she might not even be technically guilty of spousal theft. Just regular theft from someone she'd fraudulently claimed to be married to. The legal complexity made my head hurt. The bottom line was, I'd lost everything, and there was no realistic path to recovery. 2 weeks later, my pension arrived. $2,800. It felt like a fortune and nothing at the same time. I'd be able to survive, but I'd never have security again. I'd be living pension check to pension check for the rest of my life. I found a small studio apartment in a rundown part of town. 4,000 baht per month, about $120. Concrete floor, shared bathroom down the hall, no hot water. But it was mine, safe. A place to rebuild from. Marcus helped me furnish it. We went to secondhand shops, bought a thin mattress, a plastic table, 2 chairs, a rice cooker. The basics. I didn't need much anymore. I spent days trying to process what happened, replaying every moment with Kanya, looking for signs I'd missed. There were so many. Her reluctance to share details about her family, the fact that Marcus's friend couldn't verify where she worked, the way she'd taken control of my medications and my phone, the convenient timing of my heart attack, right when she was ready to execute the final theft. Had she caused the heart attack? I'd never know. But the thought haunted me. Had she been poisoning me, giving me something in my medications to stress my heart? Or had I just been unlucky, and she'd simply seized the opportunity when it arose? Either way, she'd planned this. She'd known exactly what she was doing from the moment we met. Maybe from before we met. Maybe she'd been watching for vulnerable foreign men at that clinic, waiting for the perfect target. And I'd been perfect. Recent widower, grieving, lonely, financially comfortable, trusting. Everything she needed. I attended expat support groups, heard similar stories. Men who'd lost everything to Thai women they'd trusted, some to fake business investments, some to fake property deals, some, like me, to fake wives who'd stripped them clean during moments of vulnerability. The amounts varied, the methods varied, but the psychological pattern was always the same. Identify a lonely man, build trust, create dependency, extract resources, disappear. One guy Australian named Greg had lost $400,000 to a woman who'd claimed to be a successful businesswoman. She'd convinced him to invest in a resort project. After a year of watching construction that never quite progressed, he'd finally investigated and discovered the land didn't even belong to her. The construction site was for someone else's project. She'd been showing him photos of someone else's work. Another guy, German named Klaus, had lost his house. Literally, he'd bought a house with his Thai girlfriend's help, put it in her name because foreigners couldn't own land. One day he came home to find the locks changed. She'd sold the house and disappeared with the proceeds. $200,000 gone. Compared to some of them, I'd gotten off light. I was only down $280,000. I still had my pension. I still had my health. More or less. I was alive. But it didn't feel light. It felt like everything. In September, I made the decision to go back to the United States. Thailand no longer felt safe. Every Thai woman I saw made me paranoid. Was she running a scam? Looking for her next victim? I couldn't live like that. Plus, I was running out of money. My pension covered rent and basic food. But visa fees, medications, unexpected expenses, it was eating away at what little buffer I had left. In the U.S., I'd have Medicare, social services, a support system. The expat community helped fundraise for my plane ticket. Someone organized a donation drive. People I'd never met contributed. By October, they'd raised enough for a one-way ticket to Denver plus a little extra for starting over. I didn't want charity, but I also didn't have a choice. I accepted with as much grace as I could manage and promised to pay it forward somehow. Marcus drove me to the airport. On the drive, he said, "David, you know this wasn't your fault, right? You didn't do anything wrong. You were grieving and lonely, and someone took advantage of that. That's on her, not you. I knew he was trying to help, but it didn't feel true. I'd ignored warnings. I'd made stupid decisions. I'd added her to my bank account after knowing her less than a year. Those were my choices, my failures. Marcus said, "Every single guy in our expat group has been taken advantage of at some point. Different degrees, different ways, but everyone. Thailand is beautiful and terrible. You can't survive here without learning to be suspicious, and you weren't ready to be suspicious. You came here to heal, not to fight, so stop blaming yourself." I nodded but didn't believe him. The flight from Chiang Mai to Denver through Tokyo and Los Angeles took 26 hours. I sat in economy, squeezed into a middle seat, thinking about how different this trip was from my first one to Thailand. Then, I'd been full of hope, curious, ready for a new chapter. Now, I was returning home, broke, humiliated, broken. My sister Laura picked me up at Denver International Airport. She'd always thought my move to Thailand was reckless. She'd warned me to be careful. When I called her to explain what happened, she didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "Come home, we'll figure it out." Laura lived in Aurora with her husband and 2 teenage kids. They'd set up the basement guest room for me. She said I could stay as long as I needed. No rush, no judgment. That first night back in Colorado, I lay in bed in my sister's basement and felt utterly displaced. This wasn't my home. Thailand wasn't my home. The house I'd shared with Jen was sold. I didn't have a home anymore. Just a guest room in my sister's basement and a pension check every month. Laura helped me get settled. We went to Social Security office, updated my address, made sure my pension would continue depositing correctly. We went to the VA hospital. I was eligible for some services as a former firefighter and got me set up with a primary care doctor. We went to Goodwill and bought me clothes. I felt like a charity case, like I'd regressed to being a dependent child after spending 40 years as a self-sufficient adult. The VA doctor was concerned about my heart, ordered tests, said my condition had deteriorated significantly, asked what had happened in Thailand. I told him. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mr. Collins, I want you to consider the possibility that you are being poisoned, gradually. Enough to stress your heart, but not enough to kill you immediately. Your symptoms escalated while you were with your wife, correct?" I said yes. The heart attack happened while I was married to Kanya. The doctor said he couldn't prove anything without the medications I'd been taking. But the pattern was suspicious. If she was controlling your medications, she could have been adding something. Or removing something. Or both. Designed to make you sick enough to be hospitalized so she could execute the theft. The thought made me physically ill. Had Kanya been slowly killing me? For money? The doctor said we'd never know for sure. But I should be aware that deliberate poisoning was a known tactic in financial scams. Make the victim dependent, compliant, incapacitated at the critical moment. I started seeing a therapist at the VA. PTSD, she diagnosed. Not from firefighting, I'd processed that years ago with Jen's help, but from the betrayal, from the systematic dismantling of my life by someone I'd trusted completely. The therapist said betrayal trauma was real. It rewired your brain's ability to trust, made you hypervigilant, suspicious of everyone. Some people never recovered, just lived the rest of their lives unable to form close relationships because the risk felt too great. That sounded like my future. I couldn't imagine trusting anyone again. Ever. I've been back in the United States for 16 months now, still living in Laura's basement, still surviving on my pension, still processing what happened. Laura keeps suggesting I try to move on. Maybe date again. I laugh. Date? With what money? With what trust? I'm 64 years old, broke, living in my sister's basement. What do I possibly have to offer anyone? But more than that, I don't want to. The thought of letting someone close again makes my chest tighten. Every woman I see, I wonder, is she assessing my financial situation? Looking for vulnerability? Running some version of the script Kanya ran on me? The therapist says that's the trauma talking. That not every woman is a scammer. That I deserve connection and companionship. That isolation will kill me faster than any heart condition. But I can't help it. The fear is permanent. I've reconnected with my old firehouse. They welcomed me back warmly, asked how retirement was treating me. I gave them the sanitized version, moved to Thailand, It didn't work out, came back. They didn't need to know about Kanya, about the theft, about how completely I'd been destroyed. But some of them knew anyway. Small community. Word gets around. A few of the guys pulled me aside, said they'd heard stories, said if I ever needed anything, they were there. That brotherhood doesn't expire. That helped more than therapy. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching fire safety classes to kids. It gave me purpose, a reason to get out of the basement, something to focus on besides my own humiliation. I joined an online support group for scam victims, not just romance scams, all kinds. Investment fraud, Ponzi schemes, catfishing, inheritance scams. Thousands of people from all over the world who'd lost money to con artists. The group was helpful, not because anyone had solutions, most people never recovered their money, but because it normalized the experience. You weren't uniquely stupid, you were human. And con artists were professionals who'd spent years perfecting techniques to exploit human psychology. One woman in the group had lost $600,000 to a fake cryptocurrency investment. She'd been an accountant, smart with money, but the scammer had been patient, knowledgeable, convincing. Built trust over 2 years before taking everything. A man had lost $800,000 to a romance scam. Met a woman online who claimed to be a doctor working for the WHO in Syria. Needed money for various emergencies. He'd sent it, believing he was helping someone he loved. She'd never existed, just a voice on phone calls and carefully curated photos. Every story was different. Every story was the same. Lonely people, skilled con artists, devastating losses. In December, I got a message through Facebook from a guy in Australia. He said he'd been scammed by someone matching Kanya's description. Met her at a clinic in Chiang Rai. Married her. Lost $90,000 before she disappeared while he was hospitalized for dengue fever. I asked when this happened. He said 2019. Before she got to me, I connected him with the Thai police, but they said it was the same issue. No real ID, no way to pursue charges against someone who didn't legally exist. The Australian guy, his name was Tom, said he'd heard of at least 3 other men with similar stories, all between 2018 and 2024. All met a nurse or nursing assistant at a clinic. All married quickly. All lost significant money when hospitalized or incapacitated. All discovered their wives had disappeared. Tom estimated that if Kanya had been running this operation for 6 years, targeting 1 or 2 men per year, she'd accumulated somewhere between $2 and $3 million, tax-free, untraceable. And she was still out there, probably working on her next target. The thought made me sick. Someone else was going through right now what I'd gone through, meeting a kind woman who seemed genuine, falling in love, planning a future, not knowing that every moment was choreographed, every emotion calculated, every penny counted. I posted warnings in every expat group I could find. Shared Kanya's photo. Tom had one from before she'd changed her appearance. Described the pattern. Begged men to be careful, to protect their assets, to verify everything. Some people listened. Others called me bitter. Said not all Thai women were scammers. Said I was unfairly stereotyping based on one bad experience. They were right that not all Thai women were scammers. But they were wrong that this was one bad experience. It was one example of a systematic problem that nobody wanted to acknowledge, because acknowledging it meant admitting you might be vulnerable too. I'm 65 now, still in Laura's basement, still living on my pension, still broken. My heart condition is stable but permanent. The VA doctor says I'll need medication for the rest of my life. The damage done, whether from natural causes or from whatever Kanya might have been doing, can't be reversed. My financial situation is what it is, $2,800 per month. Enough to survive, but never enough to rebuild the $320,000 I lost. I'll die, broke. That's just reality now. But the worst damage isn't physical or financial. It's psychological. I can't trust anyone anymore. Can't let anyone close. Can't imagine being vulnerable ever again. The therapist says this is how trauma works. Your brain learns that trust equals danger, that vulnerability equals destruction. And once that lesson is embedded, it's nearly impossible to unlearn. I think about Kanya often, wonder where she is, who she's with now, how many other men she's destroyed since me. I know I should let it go, except that I'll never get answers or justice or restitution. But I can't stop thinking about it. The thing that haunts me most isn't the money, it's the time. I wasted a year of my life, the last good years I might have had building a relationship with someone who was never real. Every conversation was acting. Every gesture of affection was manipulation. Every "I love you" was a calculated move in a long con. Jen was real. She loved me genuinely for 33 years. And when she died, she made me promise not to spend my life alone. I kept that promise. I tried. And the woman I chose to build a new life with turned out to be the person who'd destroy what remained of my old one. I broke my promise to Jen, not just by choosing wrong, but by becoming someone who can never choose again. Someone so damaged by betrayal that trust feels impossible. That's what Kanya really stole. Not my money, not my health, but my ability to honor the promise I made to the woman I actually loved. I tell my story now to anyone who'll listen. At the community center, in online forums, to other expats considering moves to Southeast Asia. I don't tell it to be vindictive or to stereotype an entire country. I tell it because silence enables predators. My message is simple. Love isn't found in a hospital bed. I should have healed before I tried to be loved again. If you're grieving, if you're lonely, if you're vulnerable, you're a target. Wait, heal first. Don't let someone exploit your weakness the way Kanya exploited mine. Some people hear me, thank me for the warning, change their plans, protect themselves. Others don't. They think they're different, smarter, more careful. Their situation is unique. They're sure they can spot a con. I thought the same thing. I was a firefighter, trained to assess situations, make smart decisions under pressure, and I still fell for every single trick in the playbook. Because con artists aren't targeting your intelligence. They're targeting your emotions, your loneliness, your desire to be loved, your hope that you deserve happiness again after loss. Those things have nothing to do with how smart you are. They have everything to do with how human you are. And that's what makes these scams so effective. The victims aren't stupid. They're just human. And being human in a world full of predators is dangerous. The police in Thailand never found Kanya. Never charged anyone. The case is still officially open but realistically closed. She's gone. The money's gone. Justice doesn't exist for men like me who fall for women like her. Tom in Australia keeps a database of similar cases. He's documented 43 men over the past 10 years who've reported being scammed by nurses or nursing assistants in Thai clinics. Total documented losses exceed $12 million. Actual number is probably 3 or 4 times higher. Most men never report out of shame. 43 documented victims, maybe 150 or 200 total, all following roughly the same pattern. All targeted at their most vulnerable. All destroyed by someone they trusted completely. That's the truth I live with. I wasn't special. I wasn't unique. I was just victim number 20-something in an ongoing operation that nobody can stop because the victims are too embarrassed to speak up and the perpetrators are too careful to get caught. My only power now is my voice, my story, my warning to the next lonely man who thinks he's found love in a foreign country with a kind woman who seems too good to be true. Because if she seems too good to be true, she probably is. And by the time you realize it, everything you own will be gone. I'm sitting in Laura's basement, writing this on a donated laptop. It's January 2026. I've been back in the United States for 2 years and 3 months. I'm 65 years old. I have $8,473 in my bank account and a pension that pays $2,800 monthly. I'll survive until I die, but I'll never thrive again. That possibility ended the day I woke up in a hospital and discovered my wife had stolen my heartbeat while I slept. Laura keeps asking when I'm going to move out, get my own place, start living again instead of hiding. I tell her soon, but we both know it's a lie. This basement is all I can afford emotionally and financially. I'm too damaged to live independently, too paranoid to trust landlords or neighbors, too broken to imagine building any kind of normal life. This basement is my retirement. This is it until I die. The fire department invited me to speak at a retirement ceremony last month. They wanted me to talk about life after the department. I declined. What would I say? Retirement is great if you don't marry someone who destroys you? That wouldn't be helpful. But I did agree to speak at a community event about financial safety for seniors. I told my story, all of it. The grief after losing Jen, the loneliness, meeting Kanya, the slow extraction of my trust and my money, the betrayal. People were shocked. Some cried. One woman came up afterward and said I'd saved her. She'd been corresponding with a man online who claimed to be a Canadian engineer working in Malaysia. He'd been asking for money for various emergencies. Hearing my story made her realize she was being scammed. She blocked him immediately. That felt good. Like maybe my destruction served a purpose, saved someone else from the same fate. I got a message last week from Marcus in Chiang Mai. He said there were rumors in the expat community. A Farang found dead in his condo. Heart attack. His Thai wife. Missing, along with all his money. Story still developing, but it sounded familiar. Another victim. I asked Marcus to keep me updated. If it's Kanya, maybe finally there will be consequences. Maybe this time someone died, and that will trigger an actual investigation. But probably not. Probably it'll be ruled natural causes. Probably the wife will never be found. Probably it'll be another entry in Tom's database. Another victim nobody talks about, because talking about it means admitting how common this is. People ask me if I regret going to Thailand. Yes and no. I regret trusting Kanya. I regret adding her to my bank account. I regret ignoring warning signs. But I don't regret trying to honor Jen's wish that I find happiness again. I don't regret taking a chance on love even though it destroyed me, because the alternative spending the rest of my life alone out of fear isn't really living either. It's just surviving. And that's what I'm doing now. Surviving in a basement. Surviving on a pension. Surviving the aftermath of trusting someone who turned out to be my destruction. My heart is permanently damaged. My finances are permanently destroyed. My ability to trust is permanently broken. Those are the costs of trying to love again after loss. But I'm still here, still breathing, still warning others, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all that's left. The cautionary tale, the warning, the proof that it can happen to anyone, even a 63-year-old firefighter who spent his career saving people. Because nobody saved me. Not the police, not the embassy, not the legal system. The only people who helped were other expats who'd been through similar experiences. The brotherhood of the destroyed. And that's who I am now. A member of that brotherhood. Surviving in a basement. Warning the next victim. Hoping my story prevents even one person from making the same mistake. That's all I have left. My story, my warning, and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, it matters. I didn't lose my fortune to a stranger. I lost it to the woman who used my heartbeat to time her theft. That's the truth I live with every day. And it's the truth I'll carry until the heart she damaged finally gives out completely. If you found this story valuable, please subscribe to support more investigative documentaries about love scams and true crime. Your support helps me continue creating these important stories. Thank you for watching.